right, so it's one little detail.
I really, if she was my daughter, then I'd be my 3 sons. Go ahead.
Yeah, oh well. Thank you so much for asking us to speak. We feel very honored. We've been practicing, so.
Much like tomorrow's ride, or any TNT endurance race for that matter, the battle against blood cancer has its difficult hills and its easy downhills. Tomorrow's ride, some of us will be doing 64, some of us will be doing a little bit less, and some of us will be doing 100 miles to reach the finish line. But in the battle against blood cancer, the finish line keeps moving until we find a cure.
When I was in 2nd grade, I was cast in a school play. I remember my lines were short, I think 3 at most, and they were about the Rubik's Cube game, but it was my first time in a play. So my class practiced a couple times a week, and I was really pumped, and my parents were planning to come and see me. My parents did come, but I remember my dad having a lot of trouble walking in and out of my elementary school. He was really, really sick, but he still came.
I was 48 in 1997, and a father of 2 teenage sons, and a little daughter. I was working as an engineer for the Army. I just started a part-time master's program in environmental science at a local college. I had developed a hernia. I was walking really slow. But the operation was scheduled to repair. But there was a small hill. My pre-op test showed that I had a very low red blood cell count. And the operation would have to be postponed until that could be resolved. So I went back to my doctor, who put me on an iron supplement. There was no improvement. My condition continued to deteriorate. And in several weeks of testing and loss of weight, night sweats, general exhaustion, and still no diagnosis. The last test I had was an endoscopic exam of my esophagus. They found some small polyps there, but they were not the cause of the edema. However, the doctor would not release me from the hospital until I got 2 units of red blood cells. He sent me home with an appointment the following Monday with an oncologist. So Monday morning, it was off to the doctor's office. And after a quick exam and review of my records and my blood work, Dr. Kessler told my wife, Martha, that me and him, she moved on me, told us that he would have to do a blood marrow biopsy. That's a real pain in the butt. The nurse kept me for 1, but the initial test at aspirating the sample did not work because my marrow was so calcified at that time. So we actually had to core it out. That was even a bigger pain. He said this was going to hurt, and it did. It was later that day, Dr. Kessler gave Martha the small jar that contained 2 worm-like samples for us to deliver to the local medical central pathology lab on our way home. That Friday we returned to the doctor's office to find out what the results were. But all I heard was that, Svi, you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and you start chemotherapy next week. That week, Martha and I scoured the internet, including the LS sites, to learn as much as we could about the disease. And all I could see was the average life expectancy at that time was 5 to 7 years. I thought, that is not good. I would never see Sarah grow up. The following week, I started my first round of chemotherapy, my first big hill, and it was a long hill. Over 6 months of treatment, several stays in the hospital, mouth sores, loss of appetite, blood transfusions, various infections, and physical exhaustion.
I was 7 years old when my dad was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I didn't really know what that meant, only that he was sick. Growing up, there were times when I distinctly remember my dad being very sick and in the hospital. We got a dog when my dad was diagnosed, and for me that was a great day because I always wanted a dog. But I think my dad was also worried that day. He actually told me last night that the way he convinced my mom to get a dog was that there was research out that said cancer patients usually survive longer with a dog. So I don't really remember much from my dad's first couple of years with cancer. I just remember he was sick, and then all of a sudden everything went back to normal. His first remission. Then when I was in 5th grade, my dad picked me up from school one day to drive me to after-school Hebrew school. It sounds like it sounds. And then he told me that he had relapsed. Later that year, we had a class project about a local water reservoir project. And my dad knew a lot about that because he's a civil engineer. So I was really excited. I was going to get him to come talk to my class about this. But then I remember having to tell my teacher that my dad was too sick to come. And I was apologizing and crying in the hallway, but she gave me a big hug and she understood.
This battle against cancer has many hills. And less than 4 years after my original diagnosis, I had relapsed. I had to start a second round of chemo. The physical effects this time were even worse than the first. I had to drop my classes. I was only able to work about 2 out of every 4 weeks during the treatment. And then that summer, after only 5 treatments, my blood count stopped improving. The doctor did another bone marrow exam, and with disappointing results, there was still over 60% involvement of my bone marrow with cancer. In August, I got shingles, and it was extremely painful. Another hill. Then in September, I started my 3rd treatment with a relatively new monoclonal antibody, Rituxan, one of the drugs developed with the help of LLS funding. My blood counts started to improve. However, after completing the Rituxan treatment, I started to get a shortness of breath and was put on oxygen. Things did not improve. I developed a high fever and was admitted to the hospital with pneumocystis carini pneumonia.
So in 6th grade, I was involved in an after-school group, and one night we got to go see the local park light up all the Christmas lights that they do every year. And it was a lot of fun. But actually what I remember most from that night was that my neighbors picked me up afterwards. Because my dad was in the hospital with pneumonia, and my mom had just had eye surgery and wasn't able to drive. And when I got home, I even made my mom some chicken soup.
Yes, Mom got chicken soup, and I got high doses of intravenous antibiotics and hospital food. It was a killer hill for all of us. And I almost didn't get to the top this time. But with the help of our neighbors, Dick and Mitzi Horn and Dee Campbell, we got through it. Dee's husband, Bob, died of multiple myeloma during my initial treatment, and I ran in memory of him in my first TNT event.
But between all these tough times, when my dad was healthy, we would go camping every summer with my dog in the Shenandoah Mountains. He would come to any and all sports I ever played, even practices, all the games. Even when I sat the bench sometimes, he would still cheer me on. When he went into remission, we didn't know how long it was going to last, because the first time, it was only 4 years. Now it has been 13 years, and in no small part is due to LLS and their support. I'm so lucky I get to stand here today with my dad, but even luckier to say that he's healthy enough to ride tomorrow with me and with all of you. Thank you for your support when my family first started this journey, and thank you for your continuing support today for us and for the many other families touched by blood cancers. What you do saves life, and this is proof.
I have been living with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma now for over 17 years. But despite the difficult uphills, there were many times when I was able to coast and enjoy life. I was there for your brother's graduation from college, your bat mitzvah, your high school graduation, the weddings of your brothers, your college graduation, the birth of our 2 grandchildren. 3 years ago, I joined TNT. You and your brothers came to Virginia Beach to watch me run in my first marathon. And I think it was at that point that saw that I could be a winner in this battle with cancer. With the support of my family, including my TNT family, the hills are smaller now. And soon we will be coasting to the finish line with a cure for cancer. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, TNT. Oh yes, one more thing, Sarah.
All right, let's have a big go team on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Go!